Now I'm in a spot in my mix where I really want to give each element a little bit of perspective and make it sound like it's really got some emotion. And an easy way to do that is to apply some reverb. And it depends on how many audio tracks you have included in your session, like how much reverb or how many things get the reverb. In this case, I'm going to sprinkle it on a little bit of everything. Now I could, of course, just use insert reverb in this way and place it on each individual track, but reverb is actually a sort of CPU heavy plug-in processor that will do a lot of heavy lifting. So we don't necessarily want to run down our computer processor by running a whole bunch of different reverbs. So I'm going to set up an auxiliary input in Pro Tools and put the reverb on there so that each individual piece, each individual audio track can just sort of pull from that one reverb. Show you how it works. I'm going to go like I'm creating a new track, and this time I'm going stereo auxiliary input, and I'm going to call it reverb. Okay. Gives me this green track by default. Looks very similar to my master. No audio lives on this track, but an auxiliary input is sort of like this invisible pathway for audio to travel. So another part of this process is I need to reveal the sends column because I'm going to be sending audio to the reverb. So since this auxiliary input is where the reverb is going to live, I have to insert a reverb here. And I'm just going to reach for a preset that I know that I like, the plate, the dark plate. Maybe increase the decay time just a little bit so it hangs on a little. Now we have to set up sort of the routing to get us from, let's say, lead vocal or whatever audio track it is to the reverb and then back again. So here's how I like to say it. I need to send audio on a bus to pick up some reverb. So let's use the lead vocal as the easy way to sort of show how this goes. So I'm going to send audio, this lead vocal on a bus. Any bus will do, any stereo bus. I'm choosing 1 and 2. Okay, I'm going to send that to the reverb. That means that the input on the auxiliary track with the reverb has to match the same bus. Okay. Now what happens here, when I created that send, I get this fader. This is basically going to tell me how much reverb am I bringing back onto this lead vocal. Now in order to hear it, I need to solo the lead vocal and also make sure I include the reverb in it. So let's listen. We're going to loop around a couple of times, and I'm going to slowly increase the reverb so we can hear it.
To let it show, I've been waiting for you.
So you got to kind of dial in the sweet spot. And of course, things would change if you made adjustments to the reverb preset or some of the parameters here themselves. But I know that I like that reverb. I just want to dial in the appropriate amount. So let's keep listening.
It's time to let it go.
So now I'm going to listen to another spot where I know that the vocal harmonies come in. And what I can do is just hold the Alt or Option key and click and drag and duplicate the settings of those sends so that the vocal harmonies are included.
Waiting for you.
The only thing is with these vocal harmonies, maybe I want them to sound like they're a little bit further away in that mix. So I'm going to actually increase the reverb on the vocal harmonies and maybe lower them in the mix just a little bit. Let's listen again.
Waiting for you. I've been waiting for you.
Nice, that's pretty cool. So I can do the same sort of thing now with the piano. Let's place just a little bit of reverb on there. So I'm going to take the vocal reverb. Now, of course, you could make multiple auxiliary inputs with two different kind of reverbs so that the piano and the, say, vocal harmonies feel like they're coming from one sort of perspective and the lead vocals is coming from another. That could be an interesting way to go about it. And there's nothing wrong with experimenting with these things. I just like that the reverb sort of takes the edge off. It's also going to affect some of the volume mix. But let's listen to it all together with reverb across the board. See, I really like how those harmony vocals feel like they're a little bit spread out and further away. Nice. So I think that adds a lot of nice, good flavor to this sort of like really intimate and emotional piece. So that's how you get reverb. Again, using the auxiliary input allows us to use one reverb unit for all our different audio content that we want to send there, and then just sort of dial in the amount of reverb that you want there.